So this is it. This is where it all begins. This is the field of dreams. Acres of corn stretching as far as the eye can see. Millions of grains, jam-packed with nutrients and minerals, just waiting to be harvested and turned into flour for some tasty treat or maybe your daily bread. And all you have to do is crush the grain. Milling, the extraction of flour from the grain, a simple term for a hard task. The Romans automate the process via the water wheel, powered by running water. Huge stones hewn from the living earth rotate. Later, windmills will turn their sails and harvest the wind. But not just grains. This power could drive the textile mill or the Industrial Revolution. And if it was industry, then science would improve it. Meikle, Smeaton, Rene and Cubitt came with ways of such efficiency that the mills are now places of industrial power or factories of food production. Their legacy and their buildings are all around for us to see. So join us as we celebrate our heritage and our history on National Mills Weekend 2025. Hi and welcome to National Mills Weekend 2025. We're back here at Nutley, one of only 5 open trestle post mills and the only one that's still working. And we're going to see a little bit more about Nutley later in the programme. But last year our cameras were out and about and we've got a packed programme for you, so let's see what's coming up. Coming up, we visit the tranquil Woodbridge Tide Mill. John investigates mills at risk. We have a day out at the seaside. And we visit a hill named after a windmill. All that plus the quiz coming up. But first, here's Mildred.
Well, welcome to National Mills Weekend once again. Just to remind you, the Mills section of the Society of Protection of Ancient Buildings set up National Mills Day 20 years ago. And moving on, it turned to National Mills Weekend through popularity, not only in the UK, but also the Netherlands, France, Germany, Portugal, across Europe, which is really good. So mills will be opening their mills up for the public over this coming weekend. Just going back in time, every village had a mill, and the miller was dependent, in fact, on his livelihood for milling corn for all the local people, otherwise there'd be no bread on the table. But today we have fewer mills, and those that are still working, which is really good, are doing well. But the other ones that haven't succeeded in carrying on as a fully working mill are run by a great band of volunteers, which we could not do without. They keep the mills open for people to come and look and take them around and show them how mills would have worked. And I said today we have fewer mills, and that is partly because mills are at risk. And that comes under 2 categories. One is Heritage England have a list of mills that are in need of repair. And the other is mills that are up for sale are not being taken up, mainly because of the prohibitive costs of maintenance and keeping a mill in good order today. It's not easy. A lot of paperwork if you want to go for a grant and things like that. So the mills that are open, we're really lucky to be able to see all these. This year, we've chosen a theme on mills in time, mainly because we thought of possibly the war and the fact that it finished 80 years ago this weekend. And we think there may be mills that have got memories of photographs, drawings, pictures, whatever, that relate to past times or even up to present times anyway, either way. So please do enjoy the day and do visit a mill and support it, because they really need your support as well.
Thanks, Mildred. Well as wind, water power can be used to power mills. And last summer we went up to Woodbridge Tide Mill, one of the few remaining tide mills in the UK, to have a chat with one of the volunteers.
This is the best spot at the mill, where I get to see the sun when I'm lucky, and the water flowing away, and the birds coming down to see if they can catch eels. It's just such a joy to be here doing this every Sunday. I love it. My name is Peter Turner. I'm the Sunday warden at the Tide Mill. I believe this is the fourth mill here. This was built in 1793, and I often say to the customers that they look at this equipment and they're in awe of the equipment, but they should be in awe of the original concept. The Normans brought it over in the 12th century. It had all been worked out. How the principle of using water power had been worked out then. What they see here, historic as it is incremental improvement on something that was invented hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Green power's not that new. But now this is the exciting bit, because I take the danger sign off and then heave it open. It's hard work, but it's great feeling. There's a power in starting it up, but there's so much strength in this building. It's really sturdy. I have said to other people, one or two of the other tide mills I've seen are delicate metal machinery, whereas this is heavyweight, man-sized stuff, and I do feel that, but it makes me feel small. What I like about the mill when it's moving is that feeling of power. It's quiet. It's, if you like, an unassuming power. It's all there. You can see it's there, and you can feel it in the slight vibration of the building. What I don't get to do is see the milling, because the milling has to be done when there's no customers about. It's a food factory after all. Perhaps I should do that as an experience, but that means getting up early. When you're in Sutton Hoo, all you can see is a lot of grass and a mound. From the tide mill, you can see the River Deben, a view to die for. The ship burial was here first, obviously, because it was 600 and something, but we're not long after them, and I think probably I treat us as equals. I don't mind them thinking they're equal to us, but this is more important to me.
Thanks, Peter. The sound of your mill in motion sounds amazing, but what did your local mill look like in the past? What did it look like before restoration, or maybe when it was still working? Well, that's the theme of this year's National Mills Weekend, Mills in Time, pictorial representations of your mill in the past. And at Nutley, Robert is going to tell us a little bit about what Nutley used to look like in the past. So Robert, what did Nutley look like in the past?
Well, I've got these couple of photographs. This one was taken in around about 1870. It's probably one of the most famous pictures of the mill, and it shows it with what appears to be common sweeps. But when I got a high resolution copy of this, you can actually see that they're cloth covered shutters.
Okay, so that's the first picture that you've got of the mill.
Yes.
What's the other one that you can show
Well,
us?
the other one, let's just put that over there. This one's a sort of quite a nice one. I think it was about 1920s, perhaps 1930s. You've got, looking down our lane, you've got the Will in the background and a little postman, or the postman, the village postman walking down. And I've been able to date this approximately by looking at, we've got some other photographs of the mill, and there's one that shows the mill in about 1920s, looking in slightly better condition than this. And yeah, it's just quite a nice picture, showing there aren't many trees around, which is of course quite significant for mills. You really want the clear skyline for the wind. So
Definitely changed a little bit to today.
it has, yes. It was, when you go down the lane and standing about the same sort of place, you can hardly see the mill now. It's all grown up.
That's brilliant. Robert, thank you very much.
All right, anytime.
Now, we've got a new section of the film this year. It's a quiz, and we're calling it Smock versus Tower. And we've persuaded the team at Drapers Mill and Willingdon Mill to play. So just play along at home for fun.
Smock versus Tower.
So we've gathered the team at Drapers Mill together, and we're going to play Smock versus Tower. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give the team 60 seconds to answer 10 questions and see how we get on. So, Steve, can I get you to start the timer, please? Thank you very much. Here we go. First question. According to Rex Wales, where did the name Smock Mill come from?
The rural farm workers unit of Smock.
Correct. How tall is your mill? Get the tape measure out. It's about, what, 2 foot?
Doesn't say. Is it there? No, it doesn't say.
Doesn't say.
Labelling. I thought there was a measurement. No.
Shall you pass on that?
Yeah, 50 feet. Isn't it?
50 feet, maybe. When was your mill built?
1845.
1845. What is the power drive to the stone? Is it over or under?
Overdriven.
Correct. Where approximately would the raw stone for the grinding be mined originally?
Peakstone, Derbyshire.
Or the burr stones?
For France.
Correct for both. What is the sail type?
Shutters. Patent shutters.
Patent shutters, correct. Where would you find a spider?
Oh, at the end of the wind shaft.
Correct. How many floors has the mill got? Quick!
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Five
You
floors.
include the storage.
You include the storage.
Yeah.
What is a reefing stage?
The gallery around the outside of
Correct.
the floor level.
And your final question, who or what is the governor of the mill?
It's they lower the stones when the speed of the sweeps increases.
That's correct. So I think out of that you scored 9 out of 10.
We just didn't know the height of the mill.
Didn't know the height of the mill?
Do you know the height of the mill?
No. Margate, on the Isle of Thanet in Kent, is a bustling seaside resort, famous for its sandy beaches, dreamland and the Turner Art Gallery. And on a ridge overlooking Margate Bay is the 8-sided Drapers Smock Mill. And I had a chat with Steve Villett, one of the volunteers at Drapers, about how he got involved.
I visited as a schoolboy. I happened to go to the Science Museum and see a cutaway model, which I think was probably in Cranbrook. Built a model here, and the head, I remember him saying, "Ooh, a mill." The side was off, you could see everything. And I had, and somebody said, "Oh, it's not finished." I said, "Oh, that's so you can see how it works." I glibly lied. Well, I suppose that was half my idea, because that was the idea in the Science Museum. It was, the side was off. So that was 1959. And then all the hard work was done while I was away. And then you come back and you're at work. And then I got involved as a volunteer. So I think it is that emotional attachment, really, that it's very satisfying.
I believe it was built by the Holman brothers.
Yes, of Canterbury, about 1845, and they milled to begin with themselves, and then they sold it on to Mr. Ind, I believe.
So the Holman brothers, did they build just Smock mills?
As far as I know, they had a workshop in Canterbury where they recycled a lot of old milling equipment, and you ordered one to fit your site and for the height, and then it would have arrived, perhaps pulled by the 1845s by a couple of steam engines. Road engines would have pulled uprights, Scandinavian pine, oak, all assembled in their workshop and then disassembled to come over here. Our brake wheel is second hand, so they'd obviously rescued that from a previous mill.
So it's like a kit of parts, like a IKEA type windmill?
Exactly, yes.
And when did it stop working?
Completely in the 30s, yes. There was a gas engine and there was also a steam engine for a short while, but it ran largely with an auxiliary gas engine.
Today, the Crosley Brothers gas engine has been restored to fully working order. This originally was working in the factory of Mason Pearson Brothers, the well-known brush manufacturer, making their upmarket hairbrushes.
The sweeps themselves fell off in the 1900s, so by 1920 there was not a lot left. The headmaster over the road of the school, he got interested. He'd already been in touch with Rex Wales because he had an interest in local history, and he realised that this wouldn't last forever. The builder was prepared to wait for a solution, but nobody quite knew what the solution was going to be. So the trust was formed in 1965, the Drapers, then called Drapers Mill Trust, after the school, Drapers Mill School. And they committed to raise the money, and so KCC were prepared to give them the land. They swapped land from the playing field with the builder. And the school for a long time were the fundraisers for this mill. And there's a lot of local warmth, both for the school and through the school for the mill.
What is your favourite part of the mill, Steve?
Probably the sweeps. The power of the wind is there to be used. Have it doing something, which is what it was designed for. I mean, just to see the sweeps going, that's very powerful and it's amazing, really, the size of the sweeps compared to, you don't realise how big they are, but how quietly they turn and the way they respond to the wind and the way the cap turns to keep it safe is all, when it's correcting itself, even when we're not running the sweeps, and you hear the fantail going, clicker, 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 click, and swinging round, and that's, I think we're very lucky to those early people who realised that soon it will be a very rare, well, it's still a rare sight, but it would have been even rarer.
However, in the current economic climate, Kent County Council is in the process of divesting itself of its 8 windmills in its care.
We've been reassured that the future would include community use and community access. How that is established without it being in public ownership, I don't know. We don't have enough land or space for a business proposition which would make it realistic. I mean, I've enjoyed being a volunteer, and volunteer, you're helping with others to do something. Suddenly, to be running a business where you're worried about raising money and responsibilities of ensuring staff and well, you know, being a large organisation to even employ staff, it's just not an attractive proposition. I do understand they have to save money, you know, the life of a child or a windmill, but that shouldn't be the issue. There should be enough public knowledge or awareness of the heritage and heritage at risk to make it easier for the people who make the budget. But the point of saving it is for it to be there in perpetuity, not for someone else to come along and have to have the same struggle 50 years later, because nobody's really appreciated the work that went in the early years, I suppose. There you go.
Well, we've come inside Nutley Mill now, and I'm going to ask Robert, what's happened in the last year or so?
Well, in the last few months we've been trying to get the mill up and ready to actually do some milling, because it's quite a few years since we've done that.
Oh wow.
And it would be quite nice to achieve it, so we could be truthful in saying that she's the only working open trestle post mill in the country. And yes, and other jobs we've been doing is the steps out the back, the bottom was getting a bit decayed, so we during the winter took that off and replaced it with a nice new one to make it somewhat better for people to get in and out of the mill with.
Oh, right.
So yes, we have lots of little jobs we do. Yes, it's all quite good fun really.
So we're on the stone floor, as it were, of the mill, and we can see the wheels going round
Yes.
quite nicely. What does it feel like to sort of actually be in this nearly working position?
I think it's quite exciting really. It's being quite so near to the wheels is a bit disconcerting, I must confess. But yeah, it's good, it's nice to see it turning, and it's nice to actually, we've had some wind today actually to make her work reasonably well.
Well, thank you, Robert. It's a difficult time for mills and heritage in general. A lot of mills have unfortunately gone onto the Heritage at Risk register, and John has been down to Willingdon Windmill as they start on their journey to restoration.
Welcome to Willingdon Windmill. Recently placed on Historic England's at-risk register, it really needs to be saved and not left to go the same way as many other historic mills. I'll let Kevin Gordon tell you about other mills in the Eastbourne area.
Every community, every village had its own mill. Mills to grind the flour, to make the bread, and today we go to supermarkets and don't think about that. Now there were mills everywhere, but in Eastbourne on the ridge at Ocklinge there were once 4 mills, and these stones come from one of those mills, the Parsonage Mill. Although many mills have been demolished, there is still evidence around if you look for it. For instance, in road names, this is Windmill Close at Ocklinge, the site of the Ocklinge Windmill that was demolished in the 1930s to make way for housing. Millstones can be seen in some unusual places. Here we are at Eastbourne Sports Ground, just behind the DGH, the District Hospital. And in front of me, 2 ancient, or rather 1 ancient millstone, now cut in half. I'm not too sure where it came from, but the weight of them shows that it came from not too far away from here. We're at the site of St John's Mill, one of the 4 mills that stood on the ridge overlooking Eastbourne, Ocklinge Ridge. And there's still evidence of where the mills used to be. Here on my right you can see a millstone that's now set into an old flint wall. And not too far away was the site of the actual St John's Mill. It used to stand just behind these flats here. The mill's now gone, replaced by housing developments, but there's still some evidence can be found of some of the mill buildings. For instance, this little cottage here is probably one of the mill offices or buildings. Well, here we are in Manor Gardens, Eastbourne, and all over the county there are remnants of mills, windmills and watermills. And I'm standing in front of a dressed millstone, which probably was a watermill in the Goffs, which is just a few hundred yards down the road from where I'm standing. It's one of several of them that are in the park. And not too far away from us is another millstone that's been set into a table on the Horse Mound. was always supposed to be a horse grave. An archaeologist a few years ago did some excavations at the base and actually found horse bones, so it actually is a horse grave. And here's another millstone set into the path in Manor Gardens. Again, I'm not too sure where it's from, possibly from the watermill that wasn't too far away. Still in Manor Gardens, this is another millstone, a dressed millstone, which was probably once part of the watermill. It's one of the 4 that are in the gardens. So we've seen plenty of evidence of mills of the past, and in the form of millstones that are set into gardens and walls around the area. However, the mills have gone, they've disappeared, they've been taken away, demolished to make way for housing. However, Willingdon Mill still stands, and that's why we need to put some care into it. We need to invest in it, because once windmills were the heart of the community, every village had them, and many of them have now been demolished to make way for development and housing. That's why we need to save Willingdon Mill.
But after 200 years and a number of partial restorations, it certainly presents a unique set of challenges. I'll let the team tell you all about it.
It was built by Joseph Seymour, 1817, September I think it was finished. 2 pairs of stones back then, and I'm imagining that the cap had to be manually turned at that date. I don't think they would have had a fantail arrangement. We do have a problem with water ingress through the tower bricks. Not so much in the summer, it's lovely and dry at the moment, which is good to see. But come the autumn and winter, we literally have running water running down the inside of the tower walls.
The first time I came in the mill would be about 2.5 years ago, and I was taken all the way up to the dust floor or bin floor at the top of the mill, and when we got up there the floor was at an angle, something like that, and it frightened the life out of me because clearly it shouldn't be like that. The millwright, Paul Kemp, came in a little while later and put these acros in, and he jacked that floor up level. But it hasn't cured the problem. All we've got left is whacking great holes in the wall where there ought to be bits of timber and the acros. The green paint you're looking at on the wall here isn't paint. It's algae, and it's growing in the lines of mortar because they seem more susceptible to it. We are pretty much on the weather side of the mill, so if it's going to rain and blow, this is the area that will be hit first. And this in here is a sure sign of wet, and whether you can see that finger or not, that's one green slimy finger.
I got involved about 3 years ago. I'd been working here and finished early, and I had an assistant, a young assistant that worked with me back then. I asked him, have you ever seen Polegate? And he said, no. I said, it's been a number of years since I've been, so we'll go over and have a look. And we couldn't believe how bad it was. Obviously with the lockdown the previous year, nothing had been done, and there were plants and trees growing out of the brickwork. And then it became apparent that the mill was in fairly bad shape. So I got in contact with our mill writing consultant, Luke Bonwick, and he's been in touch with them. He's now done a full report on the mill. We made it safe. That October we made it safe. We took the shutters out of the sails and took the fan down. And I built a new fan for it, but because there's so much more wrong with the mill, there is no point in fitting a new fan when the cap will have to probably be taken off. So I've stayed in contact with the people at Polegate, and I support everything that they've done. It may have been a bad batch of bricks in the first place, built in 1817. The bricks may be quite soft, but a lot of the damage in recent years has been the fact that it's been pointed wrongly, using the wrong mixture of lime or possibly even cement in some cases. And I know that the whole of the external brickwork will need chasing out and repointing, but it's bad because the inside's gone as well. It needs a total repoint on the inside, and possibly maybe up to a couple of thousand new bricks will have to be cast specially because they're not a standard size. It would have to be done specifically with lime mortar because it's soft. It allows the bricks to expand and contract in heat and cold weather. If you use a Portland cement, that locks the bricks in a position. It doesn't allow any for any expansion and contraction. The bricks are a lot softer, so when you get, in cold weather, you get a frost on the bricks. They've got nowhere to go, so the hard crust of the brick on the outside just blows away, and then you've got a real problem then, because you're down to something like a sponge, which just allows water straight in.
The problem with windmill towers, Willingdon Mill and many others, is that they taper from the bottom to the top. So they're larger at the bottom, smaller at the top, and this means that the brick courses are not set horizontally, they're set at an angle. And so as the water from the cap of the mill runs down the tower, any problems with the brickwork or the mortar, and water starts to seep in through those mortar courses until it penetrates the interior. So unfortunately, as people who need to maintain a mill, you need to make sure that all of the brickwork, the fired faces and the mortar courses are in top-notch condition all the time. If they're not, then eventually you might well see water tracking through the brickwork, and that's a very hard problem to rectify once you've got that, as we can see today.
Based on my discussions with Paul Kemp, Willingdon Windmill has got a unique feature, those tiles on the side, which we think were added about 40 years into the mill's life, possibly to stop water ingress, and it appears to have actually made the situation worse.
It does look like that's what's happened, and I imagine that previously, where the tile hanging now is, that was a really damp area, and so historically they applied the tiles as they do on houses and other vernacular buildings in this particular area of the country, to try and add a bit more of a weatherproofing layer and to stop that. The trouble is you're always chasing the problem, and it isn't always easy to find out where the problem originates from, because water can track across a building and it can change its location, so where you're seeing it manifest itself isn't necessarily where it's coming in. But overall it's clear that we need a comprehensive approach to the repair of the brickwork of the tower, because that is the nub of all the problems, virtually all the problems that the mill's got. And so if we can solve those issues and work forwards then into the interior of the mill, where the water ingress has started to rot the internal timbers, we'll be going in the right direction towards sustainable repair of the mill.
Welcome to the Willingdon Windmill quiz team, featuring Jonathan, Adi, Tim and John. Over to you, Faye.
Adi, according to Wikipedia, what is the definition of a tower mill?
So a tower mill would be a brick or stone built tower with a wooden cap perched upon it, which by means of manual labour or wind can turn, so that the sweeps or sails face the wind.
Jonathan, how tall is the mill?
47 feet.
John, when was the mill built?
1817.
Jonathan, is the power drive to the stones under or over?
Overdriven.
Tim, what stones do you have and where would they have been quarried?
French burrs from the Paris Basin.
Adi, what is the sail type?
In Sussex or Kent, it'll be a sweep type, and we have patent sweeps.
Tim, where would you find a spider?
in the middle of the canister at the centre of the sweeps, and it is from there it controls the shutters.
John, how many floors does the mill have?
4 totaling, with including the ground floor.
Adi, what is the reefing stage?
The reefing stage is a cantilevered gallery that goes round the tower mill and enables the miller to carry out his reefing procedure, i.e. adjusting canvas on the sweeps.
Jonathan, what is the governor?
And the governor controls the distance between the 2 stones.
So well done, Willingdon. Congratulations on winning this year's Smock versus Tower quiz. No prizes, just for fun. Maybe as you drive around you see street signs saying Windmill Avenue or the Windmill or Windmill Place. But in Hurstmonceux in Sussex there's a Windmill Hill, and on top of Windmill Hill there's a windmill which is possibly the largest post mill in the UK.
Well, when we first acquired it, and actually we acquired the site at auction, my wife was interested in the mill and I was interested in the house, and the mill was completely derelict, I mean, in an unbelievable state given what you're looking at today. And we were told that with just £150,000 we'd be finished by the millennium and it would all be wonderfully sorted. And so, like a pair of fools, we began. We began by thinking we would just secure it to stop it actually falling down. But that piece of information about how cheap and how quickly it was done spurred Beon in particular to say, I think we can restore this mill, which was the start of a 30+ year journey to move it from a completely dilapidated state where it was all sagging and falling apart to a situation where it is now milling flour.
So it's been quite a journey then.
It has been, and I must give full credit first of all to Bea, actually. She's the one who initiated it. She's the one actually, I just tagged along. I was the +1 when the Queen invited her to receive her medal in return for all her work. So yeah, it's been a lot of people involved, led primarily by Bea, but now steered by a trust, because we gave the mill to a trust. You'll be pleased to know, Martin, that nobody was going to give the Frost family the 1.4 million to restore their own personal mill. But now it's owned by a private trust, a charity, and run by a committee of volunteers.
Martin, can I take you back to perhaps the late 80s, early 90s, when this mill wasn't restored, when it was possibly going to fall down? What were your sort of memories of that time?
I used to ride past regularly on my horse, so it was something that was always there. It was surrounded by conifer trees, I believe, wasn't they? And in the 87 hurricane, those trees all fell down, but the mill was still standing somehow. The mill at the time belonged to a chap that lived along the road. He immediately applied to have it demolished, which fortunately was turned down. And so it's no good to stand back and say, that's a good job. You've got to get involved and say, well, I'm going to help that to happen, rather than just hoping that somebody else will step in.
My role is as secretary of the Friends of Windmill Hill Windmill, so I help with putting together the rota for the guides that show people around the windmill on Sundays, as well as doing a bit of fundraising, marketing and PR. In terms of the funding, you probably know that in order to restore this mill, it cost about £1.25 million from the first restoration through to the restoration of the milling machinery. And that's a big challenge, but in some ways slightly easier than fundraising for day-to-day maintenance. There are grant-giving trusts that love to fund a particular project so that there is a final end result. And of course you can get the community behind you because they will see something going from a derelict building to something that the community can be very, very proud of. But fundraising for core maintenance year on, year out is much, much harder. And it really does annoy me, I have to say, that some of the grant-giving trusts just will not fund core funding for ongoing costs. But it seems very short-sighted to me. £1.25 million in order to restore the mill. If this had been a painting, then it could be put into storage and it would be safe for forever. But this is a mill which is facing into the elements, it's facing into the prevailing wind day in, day out. It's made of wood, wood rots. If we left it just for 1 or 2 years, it would start to rot, it would start to fall apart. And so the lack of support for ongoing maintenance is a very difficult thing, I think, for organisations like us. But if the grant-giving trusts could at least put some money aside for core funding, I think that would be a huge help.
Charles Hammond, who, with his brother Joseph, also ran Gill Windmill, took out a patent in 1873 for a centrifugal governor to control the speed of the sails and keep the stone's speed constant. This was an important improvement on Cubitt's patent sail device, which could lose power if gusting occurred. As the brothers were also millers at Windmill Hill, the governor was also installed here. So we've come right to the top of the windmill to see a very unique piece of equipment. It's the Hammond governor, and I'm going to ask Martin to explain a little bit more about it.
Yes, as millers we aim to produce the best flour we can. To do that we need the stones to turn at a constant speed. Unfortunately that needs constant wind, which we never get. Now the only way of speeding up or slowing it down is to open and close the shutters. We can do that manually by a chap standing on the chains pulling and shutting, but that hasn't proved to be wonderful. So we have the Hammond governor, which this is designed to automatically open and shutting the shutters according to the speed of the stones. And as yet we've not had it running. We don't know that anybody knows that it was actually successful, but if it is, it will be a big bonus for us. Trying to keep the belt on has been the issue at the moment, but in the meantime we've had to redo all the sweeps and things, so that's diverted us. So our attention now is just coming back to the Hammonds. So hopefully in the next 6 months or so we will know more.
What is it like, Paul and Martin, to be in the mill?
When you first come in here, actually, to be perfectly honest, when it's the first time, panicked, because you're thinking, my goodness, these things are so big, they're so powerful, it's all moving, it's all rocking. But Martin's experience has taught us all to just calm down and relax.
When you first let the brake off, things start moving very slowly, but you can feel like it's coming to life. And as it gets up to speed, it rocks around a little bit. It's almost like it's come to life.
You can imagine a giant waking up, stretching out their giant arms as it starts to rotate, and as it gets up into its motion. It's a really good image.
It's a wonderful feeling.
Must give you a sense of pride, really.
It does. Pride in several respects. One, that I guess led by Bea and the family, we've managed to help something for the nation. The pride in all the volunteers, and the community likes it. I mean, the community treats it at its mill and treats it, they're pleased with it, proud of it, I think, and so are we.
So we've come to the end of this year's film, and I'd just like to say a big thank you to all those people who so very generously given their time and effort to help with this year's film to make it such a success, and to our friends at Nutley for hosting us for the day. So until next year, go out, enjoy your mills and have a great National Mills Weekend.